tearing up. Ah.
Look at that. Look at how we just bounced over.
Where's your camera? Oh, here we are. Okay.
Oof.
Hi.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. And Tina was doing an introduction and she was so gracious, and she's right. If she didn't know me, if I didn't know her, I wouldn't be here, and other people on this call. And if I didn't know Deb Hamilton, who's on the call tonight, who introduced Tamara to the patches, then we wouldn't be here. And, you know, Tamara's story is one that's so remarkable. I just want to tell you a little bit about Tamara. She has a remarkable story, but she's just an amazing person. She's got such a big heart, and I hope she has Kleenex beside her, because I know
I don't, dang it.
Oh, would you like to grab some? Because I know I always keep my Kleenex close, especially with a story like yours. And Tamara's just an animal lover, just an animal advocate. She's been helping a lot of little four-legged friends as well, but
Yes,
she's got quite an interesting educational background in engineering, is it not?
Yeah, I have my mechanical engineering degree. Wasn't easy, but I got it.
Yes, you did. So she's got a lot of grit. So without further ado, I'd like for Tamara to explain to us what her life was before she was introduced to the patches, and what her day looked like, and how that started to transform. Because when I met Tamara, she had just gotten involved with the patches, and her level of excitement was through the roof from the changes that happened quite rapidly. And I can tell you the funny story later, but I'll let you take over, Tamara, and tell us your experience.
Okay, so I'm just explaining before right now, right? Okay, so I'm a very vibrant, active, energized, like people are always like, you have so much energy, but I wasn't that person. I was suffering really, really bad. I was going through a lot with different weakened immune system issues and different injuries. And literally, I had no quality of life. I mean, I basically I called myself a walking disaster, which is kind of funny because I wasn't even walking. So I was just a disaster. But I had ankle issues, severe ankle pain. I had severe knee pain. They needed to do a total knee replacement and arthroscopic. But then I had dental issues. So to go through all that, I had crazy, crazy pain. I had pain from a few different, can't really say the word, weakened immune issues that I had going on. Like I had I couldn't even make a fist, and you can see it's still not perfect, but it's so much better. Like I was like this, and my knees were really bad. I was wearing a brace, orthotic prosthetic brace that was in these really ugly shoes I had to wear to make it fit. And I had that going from my footbed and my shoe up my leg. I had to use a walking stick. It was incredibly difficult life, just everyday life, going grocery shopping. I would come out of I would hunker down on the shopping cart and I'd go in and get my groceries. And by the time I made it to the parking lot, I'd be in tears, saying out loud to myself, like, oh my gosh, my knees hurt so bad. Like in tears, you know, just so much pain, my knees and my ankle. And I had some hip pain and back pain besides, just not as much, but daily my knees and ankle were horrible. My hand for like close to a year was on a level of 10, a 7 to an 11. And I say an 11 because literally if I had to open a jar, my hand was so not functional that I would stick the jar in this part of my arm like this, and I'd hold it and then I'd open it with my left hand. Like it was so bad. It was off the charts, and my life had become so horrible that I literally for months was praying to God, like, just take me home. I'm done. Like, I have no quality of life. I have no reason to be here. I can't give anything to anyone. I can't receive anything from anyone. Like, I don't want to be here. I mean, all my pets were gone, so I had nobody to take care of anymore. And I was just suffering really bad skin issues. I mean, just ripped up. My skin was so bad. It was bad. It was really, really bad. When I think about where I was, like, I really just didn't want to be here. I did not. I had no desire to continue. I just was like, take me home already, because I hurt so bad and I itched so bad. And I just, it was not good. That was before LifeWave.
That's a lot, that's
It was.
like that's when I met you and I heard your story, I was just blown away because and Tina, as she said, when you're wearing these patches for every 10 years that you've been on the planet, give it a month, give it some time.
Mhm.
We expect you've had this chronic condition for a long time. This may take some time. And so we have that expectation, and we definitely want to make sure that people understand that. And we like
Yeah.
say, make sure you're hydrated, and you were doing all these different things for yourself and trying everything. And so what was that like for you when you were introduced to the patches? What was the impact on that? And what did it look like when you first started to experience your results, and how soon did that occur?
Well, first, I want to say I'm so blessed to have met Deb as a friend in a totally different way through a different company doing microgreens and stuff. And she kept telling me about him, and I kept blowing it off because I'm like, yeah, 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 right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it probably went like several months before I finally said, okay, let's just try this. What can it hurt? Right. And so it was crazy. I ordered my patches, and the team is so great. You guys are amazing because, like, they Zoom you, they totally help you patch up. And so anyway, I had all this craziness going on with me, and I'll never forget. So they all get on, Tina, Lisa, and Deb all on Zoom with me, and I get my patches out, and they're like, okay, first you're gonna put LifeWave here, you're gonna put you on here, you're gonna put X39 here, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay. So I get patched up, and my hand, which was literally like this before, and I hadn't shown them because I hadn't thought about it, but it was like kind of like this maybe, okay. And all of a sudden, and it was like at a 7 that day, which wasn't too bad because most of the time I was at a 9, 10, or 11. So the 7 was tolerable for me. And when you're in a lot of pain, sorry, agony, you adjust to the agony. You just like get used to it, right? You're like, well, I'm in it. So whatever it hurts the worst is what's the problem. And that particular day, they put the patches on, and I kind of, to figure out how much pain I'm in, I kind of squeeze my hands. Sorry, agony. I squeeze my hands. And so I squeeze my hands, and I'm like, well, that's weird. Like I was maybe at like a 3, and I'm like, that's really strange. And then I look at my hands, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just made a fist. And they were all like, can you not normally do that? And I'm like, no, not at all. And so that like happened, oh my gosh, within less than a minute. And I remember looking at them because then they said, well, how are your knees? And I started walking around my island, and I was like, okay, what kind of black magic voodoo is this stuff? Because I seriously do not know what's going on. This is insane. Like, I mean, I was suffering for years, years, not months, like a good 3 or 4 years. This was bad. I can't really say what all I did, but let's just say I tore some stuff that wasn't good, and it was not good. So I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy, So we started talking about it, and I'm like, okay, well, my hand's down to a 3. And I will say, since I've been on the patches, I've not been over a 3. I've been a 0 to a 3 every day. I can still make this much of a fist every day. It's not exactly perfect, but it's dang close. That day, so here's what's funny, like 2 hours later, a couple of my friends walk up, and they knock on the door, and they're like, hey, Tamara, what's going on? We were just out walking around, blah, blah, blah. And Roxana was in pain, and I'm so excited about what's happening for me. I end up patching her, and then all of a sudden her feet aren't hurting. And then they're talking to me about the patches, and we're getting all excited. And then I follow them outside without my walking stick, without my prosthetic orthotic brace, and I keep walking. Now, mind you, I don't like, I either take my golf cart or my car or hunker down on a shopping cart. I didn't walk anywhere, right? So we're walking, and we get like 3 or 4 blocks down. They're like, are you okay? Can you keep walking? Can you make it to my place? And I'm like, I don't know, but I want to find out. And she's like, okay, so we walked there and it's raining. And when I did get there, I was hurting, but she drove me back, but I probably went, I don't know, a quarter, half a mile. It wasn't huge, but for me, it was huge because it was the first time I'd done that in years. So anyway, that was a big deal. And I literally, I would be able to say I've not used my walking stick or my brace since. However, LifeWave turned my life around so much that I literally scheduled a trip to Peru. And a week and a half before, I fractured my left ankle. And I already have old injuries in both my ankles. And so I did have to use my walking stick like through the airport, and I hiked Machu Picchu 3 hours all over the place. It's like crazy incline, loads of steps, like loads. And when I got to the top and I looked down on the little village, I remember thinking, you know what? When I get down there, I'm going to let Susan and our guide go. I'm just going to sit and rest. But it was so incredible. Like I couldn't. And I did the whole thing. And we got done. And Susan was like, Tamara, you just did all of that. I'm like, I know. I can't believe it. And I went to the Amazon River. So many stairs. We're down at the bottom of the river. These rickety old 4 flights of stairs, 5 flights of stairs with like bamboo railings. It was crazy. Like the things I did. And I had a fractured ankle, which was bothering my knees. But I told the doctor, what are you going to do about it? And he's like, well, rest, ice, compression, elevation. I'm going to put you in a boot. I'm like, well, I can do that in Peru. I'm going. And I mean, my outlook on life, like, I don't want to go home to God yet. I want to live. I want to live life to the fullest. I'm a lover of travel and nature and the ocean and water and animals. And it completely changed my life. Eon, like I joke around, if someone came for my Eon, they would have to pry them from my cold, dead hands. It's my happy patch. And I have
your closed hands that you can
my clothes. Oh, I would grip those babies. Nobody would get them. I mean, I love all my patches. Like there's so many things I can say. Like I'm rebuilding my knee cartilage. It's insane. Like I went to see my ortho in July, and so the prior January of 2023, he's like, you're bone on bone. We got to do TKR, total knee replacement. You need arthroscopic in your right, blah, blah, blah. And then I had dental issues. I went through a year of dental stuff. That's a whole nother story. Wish I had the patches through that. I didn't. It is what it is. Anyway, I started these patches. I found like a protocol online to rebuild cartilage with glutathione and neon. And I started doing it regularly. And I went to my ortho in July, and he's like, okay, what's going on? He goes, I don't understand because your MRIs and your x-rays are still a mess. He goes, but you have like full extension and reflection of your knee. He's like, you had like a little tiny fraction of that. You're bone on bone. What's happening? How are you feeling? What are you doing? And I told him I'm not using my walking stick. I'm not using my brace. Like I told him all this stuff. I'm like, and I played pickleball. And he's like, you what? I play pickleball? And he's like, you what? I go, I played pickleball. And he goes, okay, I don't care. If you feel good enough to do it, do it. And so like, until I fractured my ankle. But anyway, which I did not do during pickleball, by the way, that was just working in the garden. So anyway, my point is like my whole life changed. I'm back to tea, vibrant and loving life, traveling. I went out of the country to a new country for the first time in 20 years. It's just really like, I'm so incredibly grateful. I'm grateful to God. I'm grateful to LifeWave. I'm grateful for Deb, because if I'd never met her, I wouldn't have had a clue about this. And it literally has changed my life. I mean, I could go on and on. There's so many other things. Like people see me, one of my friends, every time she sees me, she's like, oh my God, your skin looks so good. Your eyes are so bright. Like all this stuff, things I don't even notice. I saw a friend just last week. She had been in Japan. I was in Peru. We got together, talked about our trips. And she's like, wow, what are you doing? Your hair is so much fuller. It looks great, blah, blah, blah. Like all this stuff is happening that's not just healing me, but like other stuff is happening, which I don't even notice because I've been suffering so bad that I notice more of the stuff that I'm not suffering, But it's really been incredible. And I love that it's all natural. I got diagnosed with something over 20 years ago because I used to mountain bike and I got bit by a tick, was a very, very bad experience. And the Western medical world like screwed me up for 3 years, to be honest. They just put me on more drugs, like more specialists, more drugs. And then the drugs had side effects. It was horrible. And I found an alternative doctor who treated me, but because it had gone so long, it had become chronic, but he did get me a lot better, but there's still things I deal with because of that. But so I became very, very much about natural. I don't even take, what do you call it? Ibuprofen, Advil, I don't take any of that. I'm very much about natural healing for the body. And these patches are completely natural. And if you give your body what it needs, your body heals itself. That's the bottom line. I mean, think about it. If I take a knife out and I cut a sofa, you're going to have to stitch that sofa up. If I cut down my arm, that arm's going to heal. Unless I break it off, cut it off, then I'm going to ER to get it sewn back on. But I mean, pretty much the body is so amazing. And the thing is, so I'm not really supposed to do this because clinicals have only been done on horses and people. However, I am a huge, huge animal person. So I'm going to share a couple stories and hopefully I don't get in trouble. But a good friend of mine who had a reverse sealed brindle boxer like me, who I wish I had had these patches for him. But anyway, they were on the verge of putting him down and she called me and said, hey, can you give me the name of the guy that came out and did it at home for you so we don't have to stress him by taking him into the vet? And I said, yeah, sure. I said, but I'd like to try something if you're open. And she's like, we're open to anything. And so anyway, he wasn't sleeping. He was having bathroom problems, all kinds of issues. Went and patched him. Within 2 days, he was feeling better. Now, here's the funny part. So I'm just so blown away by this, but he had no use of his hind legs in like a year and a half. And he had wheels, so he would drag his legs behind him. And they would tape them up, his feet up, because he would drag his feet and like they would get bloody, right? Well, 2 weeks on X39 Eon and LifeWave, that dog was running with his hind legs, still had his wheels, but running. Like, in fact, she took him out to the lake one night and he was running around with his wheels. And then the next night, or she took him out a couple nights because all this was going so well. And a few nights later, she was too tired. So she was sitting out front. She's like, oh, I'm not going to take him to the lake. And he went walking by her in his wheels. And she's like, Kane, where are you going? Come here. And he took off. And she's like, Kane, she's yelling at him because she's thinking, oh my God, his feet aren't bandaged. They're going to bleed. No, he was running. She sent me video, his legs, he's running. He's like, forget you. If you're not taking me to the lake, I'm going on my own. And he did. And he jumped in the lake that night, went for a little swim too. But my point is like, it's insane. And here's the thing, for people, you have to remember, you can be skeptical, but to think is to create. And with people, we can be skeptical, we can wonder, but with animals, they don't know you've just stuck a patch on them and they got better. They don't have the skepticism that people have. I mean, it's insane. So then I had a little incident, and I've helped other animals, but I want to talk about this one because it just happened last week and I was freaking out. So I go out to my front driveway, a friend of mine's there, and he's all upset because someone just ran over a turtle. And the turtle was leaving the lake from the other side of the golf course to my side. And I was upset too. And he picked him up and blood is just like gushing out onto the pavement, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm such an animal person, no matter what kind of animal, it can be even a rodent, a squirrel, whatever. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So he's like, well, I'm going to go set him in the grass and see if he'll be okay. I said, okay, hang on. I said, hang on. And I ran inside and I got X39, 49 and an Eon. And I patched him in a triangular format, which is pretty powerful. So I patch him and he sets him back down in the grass. And he's trying to get his head out, his legs out, nothing's happening. He flips him over. We can see the thing cracked and his legs all bleeding. So anyway, he sets him in the grass. I patch him, I leave, I come back in like half an hour and he's gone. I'm like, holy crap. So I run over and I go out towards the lake because I'm like, okay, if he went anywhere, it's back towards his first lake, right? So sure enough, I find him like 10, 12 feet from the lake. I pick him up. Sure enough, he's got the patches on. I'm like, that's my guy. And I'm like, okay. His head was out. His feet were out. I'm like, oh. And each time I said a prayer over him too, because that's just who I am. So I go back in and I eat something and I go back out like a half hour later and he's gone. And I'm like, okay, he went in the lake. And I prayed to God and I said, please just let him be healed enough, like he doesn't drown or something, you know? And anyway, the next day I went out and he was about maybe this big. So he was a young turtle because most of them are either this big or babies are like this big. He was kind of like a young turtle, but not a baby. And I went back over that day, the next day to look, and there was a turtle his size. I can't guarantee it was him, but by the time I would have gotten around the lake, he would have gone in it. But about his size. So I'm thinking maybe it was him. And he's sitting there and the sun's out and he's stretching his neck and he's enjoying the sun. So I think like I maybe helped him, you know? And today I had an incident. I'm pet sitting at a family farm. I woke up and their family pig has blood gushing down his ear, down his side of his head. He's got scratches on his back. I don't know what happened to him. Maybe something got in here, whatever. And I'm trying to, you know, check him, but of course he's like, you know, so I washed a whole bunch of organic romaine lettuce and some blueberries and started just giving him treats and sticking patches on him while he's eating his treats. And I put like X3949 and then triangulated with LifeWave and Neon. And he literally came over to me a couple hours later because I was checking on him and he flopped down on his side for me to like rub him and he's doing good. So, I mean, to me, animals are the best because they're amazing and they love you unconditionally, unlike people, and they aren't skeptical. They don't, you know, let their brain mess everything up. But it's great helping people too. I've helped a lot of people. One of my friends, I helped her. She had a thumb issue. She couldn't bowl, patched her up. The next day or 2 days later, she was good. Had her best game of her life. Like, it's just crazy. And I forgot, she went and got, this is crazy. She had all her teeth removed and all implants put in, right? And in the same day, and the temporary crowns put in the same day, all in one day. And usually they wheelchair people out after this surgery. It's pretty intense, your whole mouth. And she patched with, I don't even know what, X3949, LifeWave, Yon, all kinds of stuff all over her face, her neck. And she said she got up and walked out of there, was completely coherent. And the staff and the surgeon were like, whoa, like mind blown. Because she was like, I'm fine. She never took a pain pill. They made her take the antibiotics, of course, but she never took a pain pill and she was good after a whole mouth of teeth.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I have to say, and I just want to make a disclaimer that, you know, I didn't say this in the beginning, so we don't
Yes.
say that we treat, cure, or diagnose anything. And I just love I love your stories, and I love the truth that you tell because you're so authentic. And I have to say that when I say that you're an animal lover, you're such an animal lover that you wash the organic lettuce that you give to a pig. Like, I mean, this is just the cutest thing I think I've ever heard. That is amazing and awesome. And
I'm a little insane, but
no,
I love animals so much.
It comes through. It really does. And I
do.
do want to open it up for some questions, but I do want to make one comment before I do that. And I just want to say that I remember when Deb was here, and it was shortly after you'd been on the patches, and you had just you were in a state where you were using your cane when I met you, and too long afterwards, and you were up in a coconut tree trimming it because Tamara
my palm trees,
California.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry, you went from using your cane to up cutting and
On a ladder.
on a ladder, a coconut tree. This is remarkable. So,
It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
and I'm so happy for your journey, and I'm so happy that
Thank you.
Deb introduced you, and that you're part of our team, and that you're changing lives by telling your story, Tamara. So never stop, okay?
Well,
And
I want to thank you guys because I feel so blessed to have met Deb, to met you, to met Tina. You guys are an amazing team. I mean, oddly enough, like a month or two after I started these, I did meet a couple people here that were doing repping LifeWave. And actually, when you guys first talked to me, you're like, you should think about being a brand partner. I'm like, no, it's not my thing. I just want to get better. And the truth is, like, people just saw me and then they asked me questions and I answered them. And then I just shared things so they could try them and stuff. And, you know, with some people, it's instant. With others, it does take more time. And some things were instant for me and some things took more time. So it just depends. But it's crazy because then next thing I know, I was referring people and Deb's like, you should just do it because you're already referring people. And so it kind of happened very organically and naturally for me. But I'm like grateful and a total believer and very, very, very thankful for you guys and the patches and my life. To have my life back is like, there are no words. There is no money that could, you know, exchange that for me. There's nothing in the world that could do something like that. You know what I mean?
And you know what? Here's the thing too, Tamara, it's such a good point, you know, and what if you hadn't been introduced to these patches? What if somebody said, oh, you know what, maybe it's not, I don't want to say anything, you know,
Yeah.
that's the thing. And we've heard that before. We have a really wonderful person on our team, Joanne, and she had that experience. And so she's like, you know what, I didn't know about this and somebody didn't tell me because they might have felt like, I don't know if I want to tell her.
Yeah.
You were just, your life was changed so drastically. So I'm glad that Deb shared with you. And I
Me
wanted to
too.
get you asking, you know, before, because we have to close off pretty soon
Yeah.
here. And I just want to see if there's any questions in the chat. Okay, and thank you everybody for attending today. Can you show me where that is, Tina?
Honestly, if you guys want to share my email too, I'm happy to talk to anyone because I feel like